Welcome to the Steve Reeve Podcast with the best moments from the past week and a few things that didn't make it to air. Thursday.
Mr. Goalie has died, a Hall of Famer, and quite the decorated Hall of Famer. Glenn Hall passed away at the age of 94. He's one of the pair of prominent Saskatchewan players who were on the Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks rosters, the other being Gordie Howe, a.k.a. Mr. Hockey. But he also played for the St. Louis Blues. Glenn Hall was originally from Humboldt, Saskatchewan. He was awarded 3 times for allowing the fewest goals in for his team. His total ranking for shutouts is 4th in the history of the NHL, a record 7-time first-team All-Star goaltender. That hasn't been touched yet. Also selected for the NHL All-Star team 11 times. He had a record of 502 consecutive game starts in his career. 552 if you count playoff games. Considered an untouchable record, by the way. And while the regulation has changed with good reason, it's important to note he stopped all those goals without a mask on. It was in the before times. And he pioneered the still utilized butterfly style of goalkeeping. The legacy is large, is what I'm trying to say. This is a huge, huge impact to the game and to the league. He spent his senior years in Alberta, and he died yesterday in a Stony Plain hospital. R.I.P. Mr. Goalie. We have got an answer now for why in the world the community rink facility in Taber, Alberta blew up last month. You probably remember the articles about it. I mean, it's kind of a big thing, especially the photos of the aftermath. Looked dangerous. Thankfully, of the dozen or so people who were in the building at the time, none of them were injured. I mean, but it could have been a lot worse had anybody been closer. Upon closer investigation, I was reading this morning, it appears to have been a failure in the fuel system for a Zamboni resurfacer, and not like kind of a design flaw or anything like that, just simply a mechanical breakdown. And it wasn't detected. It was a propane leak that resulted. Propane, heavier than air, tends to collect in buildings when it's leaking, and the mixture point between the propane and the air can cause those big booms, which is exactly what happened as the gas reached an electrical heater. They've identified the ignition source. Town of Taber still assessing how hazardous the site of the explosion is, and will move on to repairs as soon as they can. They do say it's not delays for delays' sake. They got to go through all the hoops.
You're listening to the Steve Reeve Podcast from 100.5 Cruz FM.
It's time for Cruz Music News with Steve Reeve.
Due to what's being described as a bizarre gardening accident, it looks like Pat Smear is not going to be able to join the Foo Fighters with some upcoming shows. He's going to be replaced by Jason Faulkner, who works with St. Vincent and has worked with Beck. Several shows in January are going to see Faulkner taking over the role, but it does look like Smear's going to be able to make a recovery. It's not like it's a serious accident, but multiple broken bones in his foot are needing to heal. So you can understand why he would need to just, take a little bit of extra time off. There's a great photo of him that the Foo Fighters shared. They added, breaking news and all kinds of sort of tabloid-looking stuff on there. Pat Smear, bizarre gardening accident, details in caption. And he's sitting there, strapped into a gurney, flipping the bird. Fantastic. Iconic. 21 Pilots announcing the More Than We Ever Imagined concert film. They had a sold-out stadium show in Mexico at during the Clancy World Tour. 65,000 fans. This reimagined release is going to be arriving next month in theaters, limitedly, and then, of course, online somewhere to watch as well. But if you are anywhere near an IMAX theater and you're curious, that would probably be the best way to watch. Meanwhile, Brandon Flowers just recently joined Dawes for a couple of songs, including The Killers' When You Were Young, as well as The Promised Land from Bruce Springsteen, a benefit concert for the victims of the LA wildfires, now that we have hit the 1-year mark. A concert for Altadena is what it was called, victims of last year's Eaton's fires will be benefiting. Brandon Flowers also announcing that there is a new Killers album gonna be coming, but he wants to keep people on their toes, and he does announce that there are 2 new solo records that are going to be on the way before then. Looks like the 8th studio album for the band won't be released anytime sooner than 2027. And that's it for your music news this morning. One of the most offensive things you can possibly think of.
I'm Johnny Knoxville.
I'm Johnny Knoxville.
My name's Johnny Knoxville.
Hello, I'm Johnny Knoxville.
Welcome to Jackass.
They've announced another one is coming in June. Actually, that does make sense because I have seen a little bit of a ramp up in posts from Steve-O on the internet lately, kind of showing off some other stunt people and their work on the internet. That's how they got started, just shooting their own stuff and getting picked up by MTV Films. Well, at least that was for the movie. After the TV show, they've done a lot. I can't believe they've done so many. There was Jackass the movie, number 2. 2.5 was a compilation that was added to it for the home release. Then you had 3D, 3.5, The Bad Grandpa movie, Jackass Forever, 4.5, Jackass 5 is what's going to be arriving in June. No formal title actually really revealed. It's just going to be the 5th one, and I'm sure they'll come up with some sort of pun and somehow outdo themselves. Some of the things that I've seen in those movies will stick with me until the end of my days, and for some reason, I can't stay away. So yeah, probably going to be in the seats for this one with a popcorn bag and maybe a puke bag as well.
Friday.
There has been a serious theft. If you know anything about the crime that took place on December 29th, I would be very surprised because the heist of sorts happened at a bar called Donkey's Place in Camden. That would be, I believe, New Jersey. I could be wrong about the exact location, but certainly in the United States, a walrus bone, a genitalia bone, has been stolen from an iconic cheesesteak spot. I thought it was a cheesecake spot at first. I was like the factory, but no, cheesesteak. Very important for the details of the story. And I guess it was a almost New Year's Eve kind of thing, December 29th. A few people drinking at the bar, even paying with credit cards, so they can be tracked down. I guess they left with this jar of, some sort of preservative and a long deceased walrus's genitalia bone, which, the anatomy of which you can figure out on the internet. Probably not a search you want to be doing at work. But they're just asking for it back, saying we don't want to have any charges pressed. It's just a conversation piece, and regulars at the spot have been missing it in the week since. They just want it to return. I mean, hopefully, it's just on a shelf somewhere and can be returned instead of being smashed in the gutter like the most depressing end to this story. But weird that they have it. Weird that it was stolen. And hopefully not so weird if they just give it back and everything can move on for the fine people of Donkey's Place in Camden, possibly New Jersey. New job opportunities for 2026. A Canadian recruitment agency, Randstad, has put out a list of the top 15 most in-demand jobs in Canada. And first thing to address, I'd say, is probably that the list of most in-demand jobs in Canada for 2026 is that most of them are commanding about a 50 to 70K salary, which isn't quite at a comfortable cost of living in Canada, which immediately makes me wonder, why isn't the pay reflecting the fact that these are such in-demand positions? But again, take this all with a nice grain of salt. What's more fun to talk about is just the list itself. A forklift operator squeaked into the 15th position, largely due to the growing e-commerce supply chain dropship industry. Not too much of a surprise. But at the top of the list are receptionist, accounting tech, customer service rep, admin assistant, and sales associate.
I'd like to talk to you about a good opportunity for you and your loved ones. We all have dreams. I know I do. I'd like to talk to you about an exciting opportunity that people are talking about.
We gotta get going.
Hey Alexa, play the Steve Reeve podcast.
David Bowie's at the top of the news stories. Yesterday was his birthday. He would have been 79 years old. And tomorrow marks 10 years since his death. It also is 10 years this week since the last releases, his final album Black Star and his final music video and single Lazarus. Well, there's been an announcement that his childhood home, located in South London, is going to be restored and then made available for viewing, so the public can actually enter. He was living there between the ages of 8 and 20, very formative years, in Bromley specifically, and the Heritage of London Trust, a charity organization, are going to, have already acquired the home and are going to be restoring it. They say that should be completed by about 2027 and will be a pilgrimage for his fans once it does open. Morrissey also in the news. There has been calculations, data sets made of just how many concerts he's fulfilled based on how many promises have been made of showing up to concerts, and it's about 74%, which is better than I thought it would be. But he does say more is coming, more music for sure. He's actually announced a new single and a first album in 6 years, which will be titled Makeup Is a Lie, and says more to come. Live music support for that later on in 2026. We'll just have to see how many of those concerts he actually makes it to. That's it for your music news this morning. This is David Bowie week. It was his birthday yesterday, born in Brixton in the UK in 1947. Tomorrow is the anniversary of his death, 10 years ago in 2016. And 10 years ago, just days before he died, he released his final album, Black Star, along with his final music video for the song Lazarus. He released 27 studio albums, including the posthumous Toy in 2021. He appeared in 17 movies, including the iconic portrayal of Jareth the Goblin King in The Labyrinth. I've often thought over the last decade, it is surprising how often it's jumped into my brain, actually, in a David Bowie-less world about this post that was widely shared after his death. I don't know who first said it, but it goes, if you're ever sad, just remember the world is 4.543 billion years old, and you somehow managed to exist at the same time as David Bowie. And somehow it's really a comforting thought.
Transmission over. Want more Steve? New podcast episodes happen every Friday, or just tune into the Steve Reeve Show. Weekday mornings starting at 5:30 a.m. on 100.5 Cruz FM.